two Powerwall 3s by Tesla Energy with a very unconventional solar system, where they've got an oil boiler going through a very unconventional countryside property. We're not just talking about a few £100 worth of saving, we're talking a few £1,000s. Today, I'm sitting down with a client, I'm going to ask them some really candid questions. Let's go. So first of all, Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me today. But before I go into any more information with Steve, I just want, for the benefit of the viewer, to have a bit of a cap over the installation that we've put together for Steve to give it a bit of context. So we've got 24 450 watt solar panels. We've got two full-blooded Powerwall 3s here. This isn't your typical 3-bedroom urbanised property. We're in the countryside. We've got power cuts here. We've got an oil boiler. We've got an electric auger. There's a lot to unpack here. So Steve, let's start by getting into it. What was your deciding factors behind kind of thinking about solar?
We are in a rural location. Our electricity supply is essentially overhead. So we do get power cuts, trees down, lines down, breakages. We're probably down for every winter, probably down to 6 full days of power cuts.
Really?
Not all at once, but we'll be down for 2 days. One day when it snows, one day when it gets repaired. And then because we're rural, all the properties are on one loop. So basically, if something happens in Sutton or something happens in Goresworth or something happens in Bosley, they will take down our line because it's the same line that goes over the hill to feed everybody else. So outages are a potential problem. And the final consideration was the economic cost. Oil costs were going up, electricity costs were going up. I don't wish to reduce my lifestyle, but I would like the impact of my lifestyle on the planet to be a bit reduced, if it's possible.
Most solar installers, as you quite rightly identified when we were talking off camera, I think is a really good point to make. Just focus on, you've got a 3-bedroom house, here's 10 panels, here's a standard battery. They're not really accommodating for this type of scenario. So you've kind of obviously approached us, but I'm really interested to find how, in your scenario, you kind of got through that vetting process of almost looking at different installers, and how did you come to choose us or determine to work with us?
Most people who, when you talk to them about solar panels, do describe the sort of the 3-bedroom semi-urban property, and they describe to you about the benefits of generating solar and actually selling your energy back to the grid. And basically that did not tick any of my boxes. I was looking for somebody that was going to look at my energy requirements holistically and actually say, as Apex Dormer did for me, what do you spend and what do you spend it on? So I was spending about 6k a year on oil, 6.5 on electricity. No way of substituting it particularly, and not really interested in a heat pump because I spoke to my plumber, and my plumber gave me the advice that basically with a refurbishment property in an older property like this, which is not that well insulated, and the energy that they would work at just would not tick the boxes for a house this size.
So you decided against going for a heat pump in that scenario simply because you felt that it would actually increase your energy bills rather than decrease them. You just couldn't see a method with your specialist plumber to be able to make that work.
Yes, he said that a combination of old system and new system in a property of this age was never going to be viable and give me a return.
So you're spending £12,500 on your bills.
Yep.
You're looking at effectively being able to reduce those. So how did you go around the inquiry process? Did you kind of have a look online? How did you filter your installers?
I had a look online, had a lot of people actually talk to me over the phone, and nobody was asking me questions about my lifestyle. Nobody was asking me questions about how much energy I was using. It was really all about where was my house located? Did I have a postcode? Their criteria for sort of filtering me as a client didn't seem to address what I thought was a pretty significant requirement, in that I've got a big energy bill, I'm at the right sort of age, I'm in the right sort of economic bracket to be able to afford to do this. I want to reduce my impact on the planet, but also I want to preserve my lifestyle. And like many people in my position, I suppose relatively, I am asset rich, income poor, because I'm moving towards semi-retirement. And people weren't interested in my circumstances. So when somebody can come and talk to you sensibly and actually sort of say, well, okay, what are you spending? Okay, so if I can actually knock half of that out, what sort of a payback would you be looking for? Yeah, which was the conversation we had. So I need to be thinking 20 grand's not going to be enough, 50 grand's probably going to be too much. So we started with phase one, and then we said we'd look at the energy consumption, look at the change it could make, and then we'd move on to phase two when we knew what the sort of impact was going to be.
So you took a view of actually you want to start by speaking with an engineer, not just I want a sales rep to come round to my house. You wanted someone that's actually had their hands on the kit. So I think that brings us quite nicely on to the point of when we approached it was literally just a flat piece of ground. You were saying, I'm thinking of doing this and I want to maximise my solar return. So what was the kind of thought process behind that?
I came about it the opposite way round. I was doing a refurbishment. I committed an amount of money, 40 grand, to actually say, right, I really need to do something about our environmental footprint, and I need to do something to reduce our bills going forward so that we can afford to live in the property for as long as we choose to do so. And also that when we come to sell the property, I've actually got an asset which isn't hemorrhaging cash, more sustainable, and actually has the attraction of being not costing a fortune to heat. At the end of the day, I'm a businessman, and your energy cost is probably, after buying it and after running your car and paying for your kids' education, your biggest bill.
Just to recap, for the benefit of everybody, we've got 24 450 watt solar panels. We've got 2 Powerwall 3s. Meant for full-blooded ones, these are 2 inverters essentially sat, not just the expansion packs. And as you mentioned, you have lots of power cuts, so you decided I really would like the gateway, so in the event the power goes out, you've got that kit to be able to back yourself up with. So can I unpack the installation process from the solar panels perspective?
I spoke to the engineer and told him what I wanted to do, and he said to me, okay, this is how we're going to do it. I was quite fortunate in that the engineers that I spoke to early stage were able to actually tell me, well, look, if you're putting a new roof on the stable and you can actually have it pointing south and 45 degrees, that's the optimum, and then you tell us how big your roof is going to be, and we'll tell you how many panels we think you can get on. The engineer was telling me that you can certainly generate a significant proportion of your capacity. That was the reason for the 24 panels. So we were fortunate there, but most people who live in the country have got an outbuilding that is in need of a bit of refurbishment. Stage 2 was getting from the solar panels to the entry point into the house, which for us was a little bit more complicated because they're detached by about 40 metres, which meant we had to have a trench, which had to go underneath the path because the path was next to the house. The guys from Apex Dormer, they delivered the main cable that came in. We got the trench dug, routed it through, took it through into the basement at the point of contact where it was going to connect to the switchboard. Then the rest of the project continued for about another 4 or 5 weeks. The electricians did their bit in terms of the rewiring that they were having to do in the house. Apex Dormer came back, made all the connections up, and put the batteries in.
Why Powerwall? Why, you had a pick of different options. Why did you choose that?
Tesla technology is pretty well known as one of the best ones in the industry, and the economics of it kind of looked a ballpark. I was more interested in the confidence that I had in the installation, the confidence that I had in the engineer was actually giving me a tailored product for my dwelling, rather than 10 batteries and one of these and one of these and one of these. I wanted to feel, and I was made to feel, that this was bespoke to my property and my needs. I didn't want to lose my Arga, I didn't want to lose my underfloor heating, and in fairness, at over 60 years of age, I'm not that capable of changing my lifestyle to actually fit being more energy efficient. The spec was to be able to use the electricity that is generated in a way that supports my lifestyle with minimum intervention from the grid.
How have you found the mobile phone app using it? Do you find it complicated to use, your Tesla app? Do you have to have much interaction with it?
No, like most Tesla technologies, it's actually quite smart. It's really easy to understand. I'm with Octopus, and basically I see at a moment in time how much I'm generating, how much is coming from the grid, how much is coming from the battery, how much is going into the system. I don't look at the pounds and pence on it that often, but the changes are significant.
How have you found the off-grid system that we've installed? So I know you've had power cuts since having the system installed. Unpack that a little bit more for me. Do you find it, how instant is it? How good is it effectively? Have you found any downsides to that off-grid system?
No. If you get a power outage, you never notice The neighbours get a bit hacked off with it because basically I get the phone call that actually says, Steve, we think we've had a power cut, but your lights are still on. And then I actually have to tell them that actually, well, yes, I've got the Tesla batteries and it's kicked in and I'm off grid. And they said, did you have to switch it over like you do with the generator? And I said, no, just happens seamlessly.
How much has your bill gone down from? So electric and oil together, or break them down if you want to. How much are you now paying on a direct debit based upon the system that we've got spec'd?
Pre-switching over, I think that I was paying between 12 and 13.5 grand a year, total energy bill, oil and electric. I think now I'm going to be somewhere at less than £2,000 for oil and probably less than £2,000 per year for electric. We've halved the oil use and we have significantly reduced the electric cost at the same time as actually the volume of kilowatts that we used has gone up. So we've just used the solar energy better.
Because I know we've had a conversation, we've actually ordered 2 expansion packs as well, because you feel that there's further work to be done, and we do too, effectively, to reduce that oil bill, almost like remove it, buy even more over on the off-peak rate, do even more with the solar, because we've got an export limitation with here, don't we? For the benefit of watchers, when you put a G99 application into the grid, you don't always get given what you would like. So effectively, they've limited the amount of export we can do at a point in time. How long do you think it would take for it to pay for itself? 5
or 6 years, probably returning at 15%, something like that.
So ultimately, it's working harder than it would do in an interest or...
Outperforming by 2.
That's really interesting. So we've spec'd it with 2 Powerwalls. Anybody watching this would think that's an already quite a large system. So if you don't leave yourself an expandable, almost like the door for expandability in the future, then you can kind of snooker yourself sometimes, end up not spending enough money on a system, it doesn't give you return on investment. If you go too big, you can also struggle with ROI. But actually in this scenario, we kind of said, hold off for a sec, Steve. And I think this is an important part when picking an installer, I think for the benefit of everyone, is the fact the installer will come back after they've installed to potentially expand it. I know we're looking at 2 additional expansion packs, so an additional 27 kilowatt hours worth of battery storage, because sometimes in the winter, as you say, you get prolonged blackouts. With oil getting more and more expensive, actually what you're saying is, well, on a night rate of 7p, 8p, by buying more off peak, you're in a position whereby you can almost obliterate the oil bill, use it as a backup, worst case scenario, but effectively then run on electricity only. Before starting the process, is there anything that you wish you would have known now that you could almost like tell your former self that you would have done differently in the process?
I think being able to go at it in 2 tranches. When we actually installed, a lot of the building work wasn't completed. The kitchen was smaller and the way that we used the house was slightly different. So we couldn't really calculate accurately how much oil we were going to use in the new house, how much extra electricity was going to be required as we killed off the Arga. We were thinking about killing the Arga. It was Adam that said, well, hold on. If you think in the winter, it's a big radiator in your kitchen and it creates an ambience in the house. The cost of running an Arga with a battery is actually quite low compared with running an electric Arga on mains. So being able to actually expand in tranches has been useful. Also, it's easy for the engineers to calculate the winter. It's easy to calculate the summer. What you can't really calculate very well is the spring and autumn, and the only thing that you can do then is actually look at your real life experience. And I think that's the advantage that we've got, and we know that basically spring and autumn, we are running out of kilowatt hours in the batteries 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then early evening, which is when the big consumption is, we would have to draw from the grid. So it's a bit of a no-brainer to say, well, if we've got spare solar energy that we would be selling cheap back to the grid or wasting, put it in the batteries or put it into the heat stores, find better ways of retaining the energy that you generate. And I think that's the most significant thing. Look at it holistically and look at your total amount of energy, and whether that's energy from oil or energy from solar or energy from the grid, it's all the same, because all you're going to do basically is to heat water or use it for cooking or use it for light or the internet.
From an installer perspective then, again speaking honestly, was there anything you feel we could have done differently? Is there anything you would have done differently from an installer perspective?
To be honest, no. We're all in business. You want people to show up when they're going to say they show up. You actually want them to be have told you pretty well in advance exactly what to expect. You want them to tidy up after themselves, and you actually want somebody to actually come and say, is there anything else that we need to do before we leave? And you know, Apex Dormer just did the job for us.
Oh, nice to hear. Thanks, I'll take that one. In your scenario, again, it's not necessarily unique. There's so many building projects where people want solar, but there's so many solar companies out there that simply just don't want to take that project management time. I think that's kind of the point to make on this one.
I kind of don't get it, to be frank, because basically I would have thought a larger project with larger setup costs must have more value. But I think pricing this job and actually working on a larger refurbishment project is more complicated. It needs more understanding, it needs more cooperation, it needs reliability, and it needs tradesmen who've got a can-do attitude. Having dedicated staff is a big plus, rather than subcontracting it out. And the guys that came were first class.
Aftercare. What's your interactions been with our aftercare team so far? How have you found that? Has been any upsides, downsides, anything that could have been done differently or that you could take away from that? How did you find it?
Again, first class. My age, I'm not the most computer literate of people. So I basically took my iPad and my phone down to the office, and the guys loaded the app, talked me through it, showed me how to log on, showed me how to log off. And in actual fact, one of the guys in the office can monitor what I'm doing remotely. So if I needed to know how much energy I was using, I could phone the office and they would tell me.
So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out today, Steve. I know you're a busy man, you're running multiple businesses at the same stage of the game, so to take an hour of your time is absolutely massive. So yeah, thanks so much.
No, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, thank you.